I'm Alexis Schwarha, and you're watching 5 Big Questions. On this week's episode, we are joined by Drew Minik, who is a regional field coordinator here at the Leadership Institute, which is the parent organization of campus reform. Drew covers the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey to help mobilize conservative students on campus to be able to be efficient and to do great things for the conservative movement. Drew, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Alexa.
Of course. So you have a lot of experience with student government and working with college kids on campus. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. As a student myself at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, I was heavily involved in Turning Point USA, serving as the chapter president and trying to be a force for change on our campus, and that did inevitably lead me to the student government. In my own time there, I served as the chairman of the Committee on Diversity and Inclusion. It's a longer story of how I wound up in that position, but it was really a response to this social justice agenda on campus, distracting the student government's purpose, which should be making the college experience better, making college more affordable for students, and for creating a unified student body. The committee was not doing that, so I served to be a force for change. I brought conservative voices into the campus and the student government. I was impeached for my conservative views. Thankfully, due to the work of campus reform, shining a light on this story, actually, like President Trump, I was impeached but not removed.
That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, it was really a whirlwind. I built a wall on our quad to highlight victims of illegal immigration, innocent Americans who had their lives taken by people who had been deported 10, 20, 30 times, and many students found that uncomfortable. But I think that a student government, even more so at times than a campus group, is the best way to get that message across to the largest amount of students. And that's why I'm so passionate about student government.
That's really incredible. So you have a lot of experience, with student government yourself, being in that position, and then also working with students. You help put together these campus election workshops that help students do exactly what you did. So when you're doing those and you're working with students, what are some of the problems that you see most often?
Well, conservatives, unfortunately, have this need, seemingly, to be consummate outsiders on campus. That, well, it's a liberal campus, my professors are liberal, so therefore I must be on the fringe. But by running for student government, by getting involved in that way, maybe outside of a student organization, an activist organization, students have the opportunity to actually take back their campus. A conservative student government means a conservative school. And that's really what I want these students to realize. When we talk about young conservatives, young libertarians, the cornerstone of our value system that separates us from the left is the insistence that hard work makes success. And if we're working harder, why aren't we winning these elections? It's because students don't have the tools to win. They don't have the knowledge of how to win an election, even on a small scale. And that's exactly what the campus election workshop does. It teaches students many simple and maybe even more complicated methods of winning these elections, how to fundraise, how to make material, how to identify your natural voters. These are things that may even seem a little extra for young people, but in the end, if you win, then it just means that you put in the right amount of effort. And that's what I want to see. That's what I hope that with our revamped campus election workshop, students across the country will see.
That's really incredible work that you're doing there. And I want to get back to one point you just made where a conservative government comes with a conservative campus. But to a lot of people, that doesn't seem to be the norm. Conservative campuses aren't really a thing people talk about. They are overwhelmingly liberal. And it may seem like it's an uphill battle, for these students to go and take back their campuses. So what steps should they take in order to do that?
Well, it is absolutely an uphill battle. When you're confronting your student government for the first time, what you're really seeing is the most overdramatic House of Cards role play that's going on anywhere in America. These are people who, in the mahogany wood room, think themselves, petty tyrants lording over the student body, even though most likely they were elected by less than 8% of the student body. Look at any campus across the country, check out the voter results, and you will see that it's an incredibly small number of students. There's this fallacy that students are overwhelmingly liberal, but if you present a conservative issue to students, then they will realize that those policies actually do make sense. At its core, Republican policy is local. And so that's why a conservative running for student government would be supporting issues like that, making iClickers cheaper, offering scholarships and rebates for textbooks, challenging absurd general education requirements that have nothing to do with the degrees that most students are seeking. Changes like this are very simple, but are largely ignored by student governments who would rather spend their time addressing offensive Halloween costumes or disbanding all the fraternities on campus, things that, are clearly coming from someone with an axe to grind, very much the energy of the kid picked last in gym, who just is using this position as a mandate to to force their beliefs on other people. Conservatives are able to come in and attract wide-ranging support across the student body because they have policies that make sense to them and that help them. I'd say the most contemporary issue we have is on-campus mask mandates. You look at any campus across the country and you see, despite 99, 98.5%, 100% of the student body being vaccinated and a record low number of cases resulting in hospitalization among young people, they are still required to wear masks in classrooms. They still are being denied access to student activity centers that their tuition dollars continue to pay for, even though they don't have access to them. These are not goodwill efforts by the administration to keep students safe. This is an effort of them to save money, plain and simple. And many students are waking up to that. These are the exact type of students that at the Leadership Institute and our campus election workshop I personally am looking for. These are people who, for the first time, are seeing an overly intrusive government in their lives. And when a student government, the voice of the student body, should be expected to be the voice of the students and convey this frustration with the administration, instead function as toadies and lackeys for the overpaid college administrators that are destroying the experience for young people. They are denying them a comprehensive education, denying them a social life, denying them that chance to grow up that going away to college does for a young person.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And students are actually starting to wake up and they see these policies, they see these things happening at their universities, specifically now with COVID-19. Schools are going remote. They're starting the spring semester online. But a vast majority of students aren't for that. In 2020, there was a study that showed about 90% of students were over remote learning. They didn't want to go back to that. And so it's kind of an impact, I guess, that students can have when they run for student government. They can take those policies that are arbitrary, that they don't like, and they can do something about that. So with that being said, can you go a little deeper into the impact that students who want to get involved, the difference they can make on campus?
Absolutely. There are many different benefits to serving in your student government. First and foremost, making life better for your fellow students. We see with the current state of college campuses in America, people who are not enjoying their time on campus, who are paying too much for too little. And as a member of your student government, you can make that change. Additionally, you're able to advance your ideology in a simple way of cutting spending, making college more affordable for students, and properly addressing the concerns of the student body. Right now, many student governments across the country are simply secret meeting clubs for this cabal of insane leftist sycophants who insist on putting the right and wrong pronouns on every which thing, renaming buildings, changing the mascot, things that are so superficial it hurts. They wind up spending more money and then question why tuition rises. They ask for solar panels on campus and then question why their student activity fees went up. A benefit of being in student government as a conservative is to fight that and to really put your ideology at work where it matters. This is not the platform where we are going to end abortion. This is not the platform to start or end a war, but this is a platform for students to make their voice heard in a way that is consistent with their ideology and their setting. Many of the leaders of student governments today don't understand that, and that's why tuition continues to rise. That's why student fees continue to rise, and students aren't seeing the benefit. I really just hope that when getting involved, when a student is asking him or herself whether or not they want to be involved in student government, that they keep in mind that it'll be their first election, not their last. This is proven time and time again to be that first start for people who want to serve in public life, who want to benefit their community, benefit their state, benefit the country. And really, I think a lot of talent gets lost because the right attention isn't being given to leaders in student government and people who want to make that difference. I hope as well to the students listening that they sign up for a CEW. This is hands-on professional help. We offer all help on all the ins and outs from what makes a good candidate based on your interests, what office would be best for you, the ins and outs of a campaign. And these are skills that will benefit you long after graduation. Additionally, as I said earlier, tips on advertising, private fundraising, and even understanding the ins and outs of the complicated financial disclosure process that students usually need to follow. I just could not speak more highly of this program, and I think that it's the future of conservatism on campus. We've had so many victories in lawsuits, in activism, and all the other great projects that the Leadership Institute is involved in. And I consider this the next step on that pathway to actually winning on college campuses. I don't want conservatives to feel like outsiders. And the purpose of the CEW is to make sure that students understand that taking that power back is not that difficult. And in fact, with the right amount of concentration and help and training, that is a reality for anyone.
That's definitely a great program and a great option that students have. One thing I really like about what you just said is it's preparing these students for life after college too. So students who run for student government, they have the skills they need to maybe go and work on a campaign. They can go and run for office themselves, which is actually a great segue to my final question for you. 2022, we do have midterm elections coming up. Students are going to be looking out for those. There's going to be changes coming in their community. So what should students be doing to not only make a difference in their campus communities, but in their hometowns as well?
Well, I would say get involved, get engaged. No one is above volunteering. No one is above, making a phone call to support the candidate of their choice. And really, I'd say to bring it back to the student government, your average John on a college campus, sure, he can endorse a candidate for Congress. Imagine if the student body vice president were endorsing a candidate for Congress. Imagine if a block of student senators at State University endorsed a candidate for Congress. Just because you're still in school and maybe involved in a campaign strictly on a volunteer basis, student government is a big way you can contribute a value add to the candidate of your choice. You have this potential to cast an extremely large wave from a seemingly insular campus community. I can assure you that the local political parties in any college town in America absolutely crave attention from student leaders, especially those student leaders who hold similar beliefs as them. I would really push people to student government because of that extra potential. as a young person, it's very difficult to be listened to in the political landscape, as I'm sure, we've all learned. Getting involved in your student government gives you that much bigger of a voice. And I guarantee people, especially in 2022, will be listening.
Fantastic. Well, Drew, thank you so much for coming on today. You guys have been watching 5 Big Questions. We'll see you next week.